Okay, let me start again. I understand that the live stream was interrupted briefly or couldn't start on time, but it is now going, and I'm going to start at the top. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Geary. I am the lead administrative law judge in this appeal, and we are here. Hold on a moment. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was okay. We are here to take evidence and hear argument in the appeal of Barkham Pet Supplies Limited, Office of Tax Appeals, case number 19064942. Appellant requested an oral hearing in Fresno, California. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 state of emergency, the Office of Tax Appeals will be conducting today's hearing electronically with the agreement of the parties and participants. Today's proceedings will be live streamed, and a certified shorthand reporter will be transcribing the oral hearing. The transcript and the video recording will be part of the public record and will be posted on OTA's website. It is in the interests of all that we have a clear record of today's hearing, and with that goal in mind, OTA asks all participants to please state your name before you speak. Speak clearly and slowly. If you are going to be reading something into the record, oftentimes people speak very quickly when they read. Keep in mind the court reporter has to hear everything that you say. Do not speak while someone else is speaking, and mute your microphone if you are not speaking to avoid feedback and background noise. Do not use the Webex chat feature, and please remember that these proceedings are being broadcast live, and anything visible to your camera is also visible to the public. For the benefit of the participants in this hearing, and I'm speaking to the participants and not to those who may be watching this on YouTube, if you have a technical issue and you lose the ability to see or hear what is going on or to transmit your voice or image, let us know as soon as possible. You should have received some instructions with your invitation, and we have a monitor standing by to help if that happens. Madam Court Reporter, can we make sure we start the record now? Thank you. Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Michael Geary. I'm the lead administrative law judge in this appeal, and we're here today to take evidence and hear argument in the appeal of Barkham Pet Supplies Limited, Office of Tax Appeals, case number 19064942. Today is December 17th, 2020, and the time is 2:06 p.m. The issues in this case will be decided by a panel of 3 judges, and I am joined by my colleagues, Judges Teresa Stanley and John Johnson. While I am lead, each of us will be co-equal participants in the deliberations, and the issues will be decided by a majority vote. Let's get the appearances for the record, beginning with appellant.
John Fauché on behalf of Zena Carlson and Barkham Pet Supplies.
And the respondent?
Zena Carlson with Barkham Pet Supplies, LLC.
That was the appellant identifying herself. Thank you. Go ahead for respondent.
Good afternoon, Mr. Geary. This is Mary Flor Jimenez representing the CDTFA.
This is Jason Parker, Chief of Headquarters Operations Bureau.
And this is Christopher Brooks, Tax Counsel for CDTFA.
Thank you, everybody. Mike, this is Judge Geary speaking again. This is an appeal from a decision issued by respondent, California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, denying in part appellant's petition for redetermination of an April 5th, 2018 notice of determination by audit of additional tax due of $31,908.09 plus accrued interest for the period July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2015. I say denied in part because respondent agreed earlier in the appeal to delete a negligence penalty, so that is no longer contested in this appeal. The issue for hearing is whether appellant is entitled to a reduction of the measure of underreported taxable sales determined by respondent in its audit. Before we discuss the evidence, I want to remind the parties that OTA is an independent agency, completely separate and apart from the tax agencies that appear before it. So arguments and evidence that may have been filed with the agency do not always make it into OTA's files. Our decision will be based upon the evidence presented in this hearing. Appellant has disclosed its intent to call two witnesses, Ms. Zena Carlson, who is participating in this proceeding by telephone, and also there was an accountant identified as David Mitchell. Mr. Fauché, is Mr. Mitchell still planning to testify?
No, Your Honor, we were not able to reach him.
All right, thank you. So it will just be Ms. Carlson, I take it, who will testify today?
That is correct.
Thank you. Appellant has also offered exhibits as proposed evidence, and they have been marked as for identification as 1 through 3. Respondent has indicated that it does not plan to call any witnesses, but it has also offered exhibits that have been marked for identification A through E. My office, Office of Tax Appeals, has incorporated appellant's witness disclosure and all offered evidence into a digital binder, which my co-panelists and the parties should have. And I will address Mr. Fauché first. Mr. Fauché, did you receive the binder?
I received it yesterday, Your Honor.
And have you reviewed it to ensure that it contains all of your proposed evidence?
It does contain all my proposed evidence, yes.
Does the appellant have any additional physical evidence that it wants to offer?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Have you reviewed respondent's proposed evidence?
I have not. I believe it's no different from what has been presented previously, and I'm okay with all that.
All right, and this is Judge Geary again. The respondent has indicated that its evidence is what has already been produced earlier in this appeal. I'm going to ask you whether you have any objection to the admission of respondent's proposed evidence, Mr. Fauché.
I do not.
All right. The respondent's evidence exhibits A through E are admitted. Ms. Jimenez, does respondent still plan to call no witnesses?
Mr. Geary, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. That is correct. We will not have any witnesses today.
This is Judge Geary again. And have you reviewed the hearing binder to ensure it contains all of respondent's proposed evidence?
We did, and we have all the complete evidence in there.
All right, thank you. And this is Judge Geary again. Does respondent have any additional physical evidence that it wants to offer?
Mr. Geary, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. We don't have additional exhibits.
Thank you, Judge Geary here. And does the respondent, has the respondent reviewed all of appellant's proposed evidence, Ms. Jimenez?
We have.
And does respondent have any objections to appellant's proposed evidence 1 through 3?
Mr. Geary, we have no objections to appellant's exhibits.
Thank you. Judge Geary here. Appellant's proposed evidence is admitted, exhibits 1 through 3. Mr. Fauché, because you plan to call a live witness, I will allow you an opportunity to give a very brief opening statement for the sole purpose of providing a brief outline of what you expect Ms. Carlson's testimony to be you're not required to do that. If you want to, I will give you that opportunity. Do you want to?
Yes.
This is John Fauché, and yes, I'd like to give a very short opening statement.
All right. And after you give your opening statement, let me know when you are through. I will administer an oath of affirmation to Ms. Carlson before she actually gives her testimony. I don't administer oaths or affirmation, obviously, to you or to the department's representatives because you are not here to testify to any facts. Can you tell me, Mr. Fauché, do you plan to examine Ms. Carlson in a question-answer format, or do you plan to ask her to just testify in a narrative form?
I'm going to be asking her question and answer format, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. You may proceed with a very brief opening statement.
So yes, Your Honor, thank you. What we hope to establish here is that Ms. Carlson had a process in place at Barkham Pet Supplies LLC that would catch everything, all products being sold, and to collect sales tax on it. That the markup system that was used by the CDTFA is misstating what how much she sold in product, and that it does not take into account a lot of other costs that would go into cost of goods sold to affect the markup, including shipping and handling and items like that. And so that's what we hope to show in here, and that's my opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Fauché. Ms. Carlson, can you hear these proceedings okay?
Yes, sir.
Good. And we can hear you fine so far. I'm going to ask you to please raise your right hand and tell me when it's raised since I can't see you.
It's raised.
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Fauché, you may begin your examination of the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Carlson, when did you start Barkham Pet Supplies?
2010.
Okay. And where did you start it?
In Camarillo.
Okay. And what were you selling at first?
Product only.
By product, what would that be?
Pet food, pet supplies, miscellaneous. Pretty much all pet supplies, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And did you ever start to sell anything other than pet supplies?
We opened up grooming and training at first, and then we moved on to boarding, daycare, VIP service, teeth cleaning.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm getting untracked already. And during the period of this audit, 2013 to 2015, how many stores did you operate?
We started off with one store, and then in 2013 we opened up a location in Oxnard, California. So two,
All right.
but we also closed it a year later, something close to that.
Okay. And about how much of your sales was in services during the 2013 to 2015 period?
More service than product, I can say that.
And
I'm
how
not
do you know
sure.
that? And how do you know that?
Well, the way we did it was the easiest way for us is when we printed our, when we closed our register out at the end of the day, whoever closed that night would pull the daily report, register report, and they would pull tax money for product that was sold that day and put into a separate bank bag. And then I would get that in process deposits and pull the tax money, separate it, and then when the quarter would end, I would go on to BOE online website and process the quarter taxes.
Okay, so you did this on a quarterly basis. Is
Correct.
that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Did that ever change?
It changed once we received audit. The gal that I was working with, the first person, I don't recall her name, but she told me that it wasn't wrong the way I was doing it, but I really should report every quarter product sales plus service sales. So we changed it at that point. But through every year, every quarter, we always did it the easiest way we knew how.
Okay, thank you. And
Mhm.
were you actually physically in the store yourself?
No, I worked for a computer parts warehouse in Camarillo from 2003 to 2016, full time.
Okay. So who was pulling these receipts?
It would be the
Really?
staff, the
Okay.
register operators.
Okay. And so can we take a look at Exhibit 3? That's on page 7 of your binder. And okay. Your Honor, I'm having trouble getting to it myself. There we go. Okay. And page 7. Do you recognize this?
The register receipt?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And what can you tell me what this represents?
This represents the daily sales for 3/13. That's the day. And then boarding, cat food, dog food, grooming, dog miscellaneous, bath, daycare, and nails are separated by department. So
Okay.
on that day, grooming was $827 by itself.
Okay. And so that would be a service, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so it looks like we've got $13.56 and 29 cents total sold that day. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And we showed tax $8.34. How was that arrived at?
That was calculated at 7.25% for all product, cat food, dog miscellaneous on that ticket.
Okay. And is that automatically done by the register?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then we've got an entry for void, negative $58. What is that?
Sometimes things are voided if people don't have, if their credit card don't go through, or if it was put in the wrong department, or anything like that, pretty much.
Okay. And then I think some of the items below that are pretty self-explanatory. How much cash, how much came in checks, how much came by charge card.
Correct.
At the bottom, it says CID, $298.27. What is that?
That's the balance in the cash drawer because there was a payout for $56.43. So after that was taken out, the total amount in the register was $298.27.
Okay. And why was $56.43 taken out and paid?
It could have been for a cash service. People come and clean our windows, or stuff like that, or lunch for the employees. It was a payout. It was a payable.
Okay. And then at the bottom, GT, I assume that means grand total, 245,000
Yeah.
and change. And
Yes.
what is that?
Well, that's the gross totals of all sales up to 3/13. But a lot of times you can't really bank on that because if there's a mistake, it can't be corrected. That's the daily tape for that day. And if it's corrected, it goes on to a different day if there was an issue. Sometimes Craig, my husband, would run the register and his big fingers would hit the wrong keys and we would have a sale in there that was just outrageous. So I would have to correct it the next day with a copy of the correction, and all that would be put into the registers for backup.
Okay. And so that's the grand total of sales for all year. Is that correct?
Yes, for that, yeah, grand total, yes.
Starting January 1st, going to March 13th
It's
so far.
13, yes, correct.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Thank you. All right.
Mhm.
Let's see. Okay, and so with this tape, it shows a certain amount of sales tax. What would have happened with that amount of sales tax for that day?
That there would be a receipt, an extra receipt printed to go along with the taxes that were due for that day. And they would pull $8.34 out of the register. And that would all be put in one separate bag for taxes only.
Okay.
And that would be
part-
given to Craig. Craig would bring it home and I would, do my accounting in the evenings.
Okay. And we referred to Craig a lot. Can you tell us who Craig is?
Craig is my husband. He's the one that ran the store 100%.
All right, thank you. And do you see any way that you would have missed any items that you owed sales tax on?
We have to bank on our staff to ring things up correctly. That's pretty much the way there's no way I'd know, So we did have cameras over the register and, so we know, the product that if there was an issue, we'd be able to see if there was something rung up wrong or, but there's no flags. There was no way that I would know.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's, and so you're familiar with how the CDTFA did its audit on your store, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And they included a markup on the product. Do you have any issues with that markup?
Yes, I do, because a lot of time, like the green tripe invoice, the product was calculated for the markup, but none of the packing fees or the freight. And that vendor is one vendor that charges a lot because they ship us these frozen tubes of green tripe, and it's heavy. They're frozen food. So they charge, they have to in order for it to make sense for them. So we do pay a lot on freight and packing fees. So I don't feel like that has been counted into the markup figures.
Okay. Well, let's go to let's see. It's Exhibit 1 or Exhibit A, page 5 in the binder.
I'm there if you're there.
Okay, good. So can you tell us what this is?
This is the green tripe invoice.
Okay.
Is that what you're looking at?
That's what we're looking at, yeah. So,
Okay.
so you would get a shipment of green tripe, and and so what would you have to for this shipment? It looks like you'd have to pay $413.91, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Was that the figure that the CDTFA used for its markup?
I'm not sure because they just figured a percentage based on the sale of the price of the items. So we're looking at the green tripe, and then we're looking at the Excalibur.
Okay.
Should
So
be
let's go to the
yeah.
let's go to the next page, if we can.
Okay.
Do you recognize this piece of paper?
I don't have that one in front of me. Which one is it?
It's the next page. It is going to be page 6 in that binder. I've got it marked as Exhibit A, and the OTA has marked it as Exhibit 2.
Okay, I don't have that binder up. I just went off my printed papers.
Oh, okay.
So,
Um,
yeah. So if you
so it's,
know what
or-
paper it is, I pretty much remember them all.
yeah, I'll represent to you, it's the shelf test.
Okay.
And it's a list of products, and there's some of your handwriting at the top and bottom of it.
Oh yeah, I have that. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you see, I guess it's line 25, we have green tripe 2-pound roll. Do you see that?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. And so they're showing a markup there of 399.5%. Is that a correct markup for a green tripe 2-pound roll?
Well, I don't think so because they didn't calculate the freight and the packing fees in there. I mean, I don't see it on here.
Okay. And we can see the freight and packing fees on the page previous to that, the invoice that we were just talking about, correct?
Correct. They're just calculating the $7.99, but it should actually be more than $7.99.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And how representative is green tripe of the shipping costs for product that you had?
I'm sorry, what was that?
So how did other products have similar shipping costs to green tripe?
Yes, we had other product that charged for pallets. They would charge for packaging, you know, for boxes. It just varied. You know, some of them, if they were big vendors, they didn't charge because they could have, you know, they had deep pockets. So.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move to talk about the income tax returns you filed for these years. How did you calculate how much you owed on income tax?
Well, what I did at the end of the year is I would pull all the expenses, all the sales, and put them on an income statement and balance sheet, and I would send those over to our accountant, and they would calculate our taxes for it.
Okay. And so, do you know what went into the cost of goods sold on your
I don't.
tax return?
I don't. I question them. I have emails that I've sent them. I've called them, and they wouldn't respond to me how they came up with the cost of goods sold.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Do you have any idea how you could have missed 100%, or how you could have missed 50% of the product that was being sold?
There's no way, because money was pulled daily and it was put aside. And then when the quarter came, I went online and I processed the taxes and recorded the sales for product only and paid that amount online. So I don't know how that could have happened if we went off the register receipt.
Okay. And what has happened to Barkham Pet Supply?
We closed the store 2019 in April, so we don't exist anymore. It just got really hard to manage it with my husband and myself, so we decided to close the store.
Okay. And if this determination is sustained, what will it do to your family?
It would be a huge hardship. Craig and I are both on unemployment. That's the only income we have, and that is running out at the end of December. So we really don't know. You know, we've been looking for work, but it's really hard. So.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to ask if there's anything that you want to add to what we've discussed so far.
No, I just want to say that, you know, we did it the easiest way we knew how, and if numbers didn't look right or didn't get punched in right at the end of the year, you know, I don't know, you know, I'm not an accountant, but I just know how I processed our sales taxes each quarter on product. I mean, we had service and we had product, and everything went through the register, and we ran receipts, and when they were printed out at the end of the day and collected the money for it, that's what was processed. If something was missed or if somebody rung something up wrong, there's really no way that I would know. So,
good.
and we were
All right.
consistent that way until we got audited, and then we changed it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have no
You're
further
welcome.
questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fauché. This is Judge Geary again. I'll turn to respondent, Ms. Jimenez. Do you have any questions for this witness?
Mr. Gary, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. We have no questions for the witness.
Thank you. This is Judge Geary again. Let me ask my co-panelists, beginning with Judge Johnson. Judge Johnson, do you have any questions for the witness?
This is Judge Johnson. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Geary again. I'll turn to Judge Stanley. Judge Stanley, do you have any questions for the witness?
This is Judge Stanley. I don't have any questions for Ms. Carlson. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Geary again, and I have no questions for the witness. Thank you, Ms. Carlson, for your testimony. And I take it, Mr. Fauché, that this concludes the testimony part of your case?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right. Let me just confirm with the department. The department has no live witnesses to offer, correct?
Judge Gary, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. You are correct.
All right. Then the evidence has been presented, and we are now going to move to the argument phase. I think we discussed in a pre-hearing conference that the parties would be allowed approximately 15 minutes for their chief arguments. Because the substantial part of the burden in a case like this rests with the taxpayer, I believe I indicated to Mr. Fauché that he would be allowed 15 minutes for his first argument. The department would be allowed, respondent would be allowed 15 minutes for its argument, and then I would allow Mr. Fauché to make a closing brief argument of approximately 5 minutes to conclude the argument phase. I'll just mention to you, Mr. Fauché, that if you wanted to reserve a little time from your first closing and save it for a final closing, I'll leave that up to you. And the final closing is entirely optional. You're not required to give the final closing if you don't want to. Mr. Fauché, are you ready to give your closing argument?
I am.
In that case, you may proceed.
Okay, thank you. This is John Fauché, again, on behalf of Zena Carlson and Barkham Pet Supplies. And I wanted to first, let's look at the green tripe receipt. And we see that there's packaging and shipping there in an amount of more than $111 on sales of less than $300. Or just over $300. They came in a single shipment. It makes sense to consider them together. And so when we look at these, we can do calculations the same way that the CDTFA did to determine the amount of markup here. So the shop paid $92 for the green tripe and $211.60 for the Excalibur. We add these up, and the shop is paying $313.60 for the product alone. The green tripe makes up 30.3% of that. The Excalibur makes up 69.7%. The actual cost of all of this, $413.91. The portion of green tripe of that is $125.43, and the Excalibur would come to $288.48. So if you include the cost of shipping and freight in the price per pound for green tripe, we come up to $2.73. For Excalibur, it's $3.14. That means the costs for each of these items is understated by 36.5%. The cost for Excalibur both of these should be 36.5% higher. Adjusting the cost by 36.5% would bring us to $500.29 when we go to the second page of my Exhibit A. That would be Exhibit 2. And so we look here at the retail price and the cost at line 24, Excalibur, they show a cost of $2.30. That should be $3.14. And the total cost of these two items should be $500.29. The total retail price that they show on these lines 24 and 25 would be $597.50. If we readjust this chart, it should now show the cost as, the total retail price would be adding so if we go down, so let's apply 36.5% as an adjustment to the cost of everything. We would go from $366.51 at the bottom of column E. That should come up to $500.29 because we're adjusting it by 36.5% because we're including freight and shipping in there as part of the cost. We've got a gross profit that's going to be a lot less. The total retail on this doesn't change. If we add the cost and the gross profit, that comes to, on this chart, comes to $597.50. But if we are putting $500.29 at the bottom of column E, that means that the gross profit should be $97.30, and the markup should really be 19.44%. It seems to me that the CDTFA has overstated the markup a great deal because it hasn't included the shipping and handling. That's something that commonly goes into cost of goods sold. We've got a cost of goods sold in Barkham's Pet Supply income tax returns that appears to be higher than the price of the product that was sold. Part of that has got to be because the accountant, who we've heard won't come and talk about what is going on here, he must be putting a lot of costs like this in cost of goods sold, which is a standard thing for accountants to do, for tax returns to include these kind of costs in the cost of goods sold. So we should be looking at a 19.4% markup. I'm also going to talk about just how this works. I mean, we've got documentary evidence from the CDTFA. It came in and did a statistical survey of what's going on with Barkham Pet Supply's records. I understand the basis for this. It makes sense statistically. I understand the process they took. It's a long and complicated process, hard to understand for a layman. I'll say I usually don't practice in sales tax. I come from the income tax world. And so what we've got here is we started with a sampling of 1 month of sales, or less than 3% of the total audit period. We're applying a bunch of factors to that month of sales: the percentage of sales by credit card, the percentage of sales that are product versus services, and they came up with an error factor of 100% and applied it to all 3 years, assuming that every month looks the same, like the sampled one. It makes sense, and it gives the burden on the taxpayer to come back and say, hey, you're wrong. We've got more records that show that this is wrong. Unfortunately, she doesn't have those records. Some of them were stolen. As you'll see in the CDTFA's evidence, some of them the receipts fade over time. And so if there's an error, if that sampled month isn't representative of the entire period, there's an error that's going to be magnified by 36 times throughout this whole audit period. And yeah, she's got the opportunity to bring more documentation to challenge the statistics, but the problems of doing that are immense to her. She's lost the underlying documents, and she's got a tough time figuring out the CDTFA's methods. And so she allegedly underreported her product sales by 100%. We've got her oral testimony that she has no idea how something like this could have happened. 100%. That means for every piece of product that she sold, there's another piece of product that she didn't collect tax on, that somehow got out of the store, that got paid for, and that with her system of paying sales tax every day and having cameras looking on the people at the cash register as the cashiers, somehow she missed every other piece of product going out there. And that just kind of boggles the mind. This is somebody who reported sales tax in good faith, and now the department says basically she owes as much again as she's already paid out. It's going to break her financial back. She's not sophisticated, she doesn't make a lot of money, and she couldn't keep all her receipts. And it just seems that this is a situation where the audit may make sense, may make statistical sense, but it doesn't reality. And we've got her oral testimony that she did a system that would catch all the sales tax, and oral testimony is evidence. So with that, I'll turn it over and hope to hear from the CDTFA.
Thank you, Mr. Fauché. This is Judge Geary. Let me just ask my co-panelists if they have any questions for Mr. Fauché about the appellant's argument. First, Judge Johnson.
Judge Johnson, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Geary again. Judge Stanley, do you have any questions for Mr. Fauché?
Just a quick one with respect to your Exhibit 3, Mr. Fauché. Are you applying shipping and handling charges to every vendor that's on that chart based on their one invoice that you included in the exhibits?
No, it's just to the product sales and not to the service sales. What I'm showing is that we and Ms. Carlson testified that the shipping and handling charges from Green Tripe were pretty representative. So yes, we would be applying it to the dog food and cat food and nothing else in the miscellaneous, the taxable items, but not the services.
This is Judge Stanley. Thank you, Mr. Fauché.
Thank you, Judge Stanley. This is Judge Geary again. Mr. Menace, are you prepared to, I assume you will be giving the argument for the respondent?
Yeah, Mr. Geary, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. You are correct.
And you're ready to go?
I am.
You may proceed.
All right. Appellant is a limited liability company operating a pet store with 2 locations. Both stores sold pet food supplies and also provided grooming, vaccination, training, and pet daycare services. The first store was located in the city of Camarillo. It operated from July 1st, 2012 through April 27, 2019. The second store was located in the city of Oxnard. Well, this shop operated from May 4th, 2013 through November 28, 2014. The department performed an audit examination for the period of July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2015. According to appellant, the daily sales are recorded in a sales tax worksheet and reported sales are based on the sales tax reimbursement collected. Therefore, appellant did not report its non-taxable sales. Appellant failed to provide cash register Z-tapes for the audit period. So there were no source documents to show the total sales on both stores. There are no purchase journal or inventory records. and appellant only provided merchandise purchases invoices for first quarter of 2015. Based on the reported taxable sales of around $292,000 for 2013 and 2014, and the recorded cost of goods sold of $421,000, the department computed a taxable book markup of negative 31%. And that would be on your Exhibit D, page 152. A negative markup means reported taxable sales are less than the cost of goods sold. It also means that appellant did not report all of its taxable sales. The department rejected reported taxable sales due to the lack of reliable records and the negative taxable book markup. California imposes sales tax on a retailer's retail sales in the state of tangible personal property, measured by the retailer's gross receipts, unless the sale is specifically exempt or excluded from taxation by statute. And that's Revenue Taxation Code Section 6051. All of a retailer's gross receipts are presumed subject to tax unless the retailer can prove otherwise. It is the taxpayer's responsibility to maintain and make available for examination on request all records necessary to determine the correct tax liability, including bills, receipts, invoices, or other documents of original entry supporting the entries in the book of accounts. That's section 7053 and 7054. When the department is not satisfied with the accuracy of the tax return filed, it may base its determination of the tax due upon the facts contained in the return or upon any information that comes within its possession. Section 6481. When a taxpayer challenges a notice of determination, the department has the burden to explain the basis for that deficiency. Where the department's explanation appears reasonable, the burden of proof shifts to the taxpayer to explain why the department's asserted deficiency is not valid. Except as otherwise specifically provided by law, the burden of proof is upon the taxpayer to prove all issues of facts by a preponderance of the evidence. That is, the taxpayer must establish by documentation of other evidence that the circumstances it asserts are more likely than not to be correct. When a right to an exemption from tax is involved, the taxpayer has the burden of proving this right to the exemption. Any taxpayer seeking exemption from the tax must establish that right by the evidence specified by the regulation. A mere allegation that sales are exempt is insufficient. The department performed a shelf test based on randomly selected purchase invoices from 2017. The test was based on the retail sale prices of 28 items that included pet food and supplies. This test disclosed a shelf test markup of approximately 63%, and that would be on your Exhibit A, page 68. Now compare that to the taxable book markup of negative 31% using the reported taxable sales and recorded cost of goods sold. Department reduced that shelf test markup by 10% from 63 to 53% in order to allow for sales discounts offered to customers. Also, the department reduced the claim cost of goods sold by 1% pilferage allowance. Now, the department did not adjust the cost of goods sold for self-consumption, since appellant claimed that customers provided their own feed for their pets in daycare and training. Plus, appellant stated that the cost of goods sold did not include any grooming supplies, which indicates that there was no self-consumption of resale merchandise. These discussions are in your Exhibit A, page 24 and page 103, and Exhibit E, page 7. The reduced taxable markup of 53% plus a markup factor of 1 was applied to the reduced cost of goods sold of around $162,000. This is to compute the audited taxable sales of approximately $246,000 for 2014. Department compared the audited taxable sales to the reported taxable sales of around $122,000 for 2014 to compute unreported taxable sales of approximately $123,000. This is an error ratio of around 101%. The calculations are in your Exhibit A, page 67. Department applied the error ratio of 101% to the reported taxable sales of around $435,000 for the audit period to compute unreported taxable sales of $438,000. And that would be on your Exhibit A, page 66. A portion of the understatement was then allocated to each business location to account for the applicable tax rates and local allocation. The department wants to point out that the appellant only reported taxable sales of $435,000. By using the markup of costs, the audited taxable sales of around $873,000 was established. By using the credit card projection of sales method, the audited taxable sales of around $823,000 was computed. That will be on your Exhibit A, page 50. Now, both tests relied on assumptions because of the lack of records. Both methods showed substantial understated taxable sales. The difference between the two methods that the department used is only 6%. The fact that the variance between the two tests is small shows that the markup test is reasonable. I do want to address appellant's contention regarding the separately stated charge for packing and shipping. The department agrees that the purchases from greentripe.com have shipping and packing charges on it. However, there's no evidence that shipping was added to all the inventory purchases as appellant is claiming. In fact, majority of the available purchase receipts have free shipping. You see all the purchase invoices on Exhibit A, pages 109 to 136. Now, the department already adjusted down by 10 points the computed markup of 63% per shelf test to reflect that lower markup of 53%. This is in order to factor in the coupons and discounts offered to customers. Well, this greatly benefits the appellant. The appellant did not provide purchase journal or purchase invoices to support the amount claimed on the 2014 federal income tax returns. So the department was unable to verify if that purchase amount was complete. In addition, the department was unable to perform purchase segregation testing to ascertain if any expense items were actually inadvertently included with the purchase amount posted to the cost of goods sold. The department asked the appellant on multiple occasions if the amount claimed as cost of goods sold on appellant's federal income tax return included the cost of any supplies or products such as pet shampoo used in the service side of the business for pet grooming, training, or even the pet daycare. The appellant told the department the only items included in the cost of goods sold were purchases of items for sale to customers in the retail portion of that business. Therefore, the department accepted the purchase claimed on the 2014 federal income tax return without additional investigation or surveys of vendors. The department is willing to make additional adjustments by adding the prorated shipping and packing charges to the costs on the individual items listed on the shelf test on Exhibit A, page 68. This in turn will increase the cost of the item, which will lower the markup and would decrease the taxable measure. If the purchase invoice for the shelf items listed on Exhibit A, page 68 includes a separately stated shipping, freight, and packing charges, the department will adjust the cost of that specific item to include the prorated shipping and or handling when calculating that markup. Besides that, the appellant has not provided documentation or essential information to support any additional adjustment to the unreported taxable sales. The department's audit findings are more than reasonable and fair. Therefore, the department requests the appellant's appeals be denied. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer questions you may have.
This is Judge Gary. Thank you, Ms. Jimenez. I have a question to begin with for you.
Okay.
I'll also open it up to my my fellow judges to see if they have anything. But you mentioned that the department might be willing to make or would be willing to make some adjustments.
Yes.
Are you is the respondent proposing that we keep the record open to allow the department to make adjustments based upon information it has now, or does respondent need additional information from the appellant in order to make the adjustments you referred to?
Mr. Gary, this is Mary Floor. We can use the information that we already have at this point because we do have the purchase invoice for the shelf test. And we're willing to adjust those costs on that shelf test if there is freight handling charges included on that purchase invoices.
Okay, so Judge Gary, again, at the conclusion of our discussion, it sounds like the department respondent agrees that if we allow the record to remain open for a period of time, the department would be able to make those adjustments.
Mr. Gary, this is Mary Floor Jimenez. Yes, that is correct.
All right, thank you. This is Judge Gary again. Before I turn back to Mr. Fauché and ask him if he would like to make a final closing, let me ask my colleagues. Judge Johnson, do you have any questions for respondent?
Judge Johnson, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Gary again. And let me ask Judge Stanley if she has any questions for respondent.
Yes, this is Judge Stanley, and I just I was trying to follow along with you, Ms. Jimenez, and just missed what page number you were talking about when you were talking about making additional adjustments. So you have the purchase invoices that were in somewhere in Exhibit A, but I didn't catch the page number or numbers.
Right. This is Mary Floor Jimenez. Ms. Stanley, are you talking about the shelf test or the actual copies of the purchase invoices?
This is Judge Stanley. I'm asking about the documents upon which you're going to base your additional adjustments. Where are you finding the shipping handling charges that you propose to adjust for? Okay. That will be, I believe, page. It will. Stanley, this is Mary Floor Jimenez. The shelf test items are listed on Exhibit A, page 68. This is Judge Stanley. Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Ms. Stanley, this is Jason Park. I wanted to add, you asked about the purchase invoices that we would be looking at. We would be looking at the Green Tribe invoice that the appellant offered in their exhibits that has the shipping and handling. Then we would also be looking at the purchase invoices from its Exhibit A, page 109 to, I believe, page 133, if they have freight or shipping on those invoices.
This is Judge Stanley. Thank you, Mr. Parker. That makes sense.
Thank you. This is Judge Gary back again. And Mr. Fauché, would you like to make a brief final closing?
Certainly, Your Honor. Thank you. This is John Fauché on behalf of Barkham Pet Supplies LLC and Zena Carlson. And we have a situation here where yeah, the CDTFA comes in and does an audit, and it's got very, you know, it feels very strongly that the numbers say what they say, and it's hard to argue with that. And yet at the same time, we have a good faith storekeeper who does her best every day to try to collect the right amount of sales tax, and did her best to collect the right amount of sales tax, and for reasons beyond her control was not able to provide the documentation that showed what the correct amount of sales tax was, allowing the CDTFA to come in and do a statistical audit. This is something I've seen a few times, and it's highly frustrating to these store owners that they work day and night running their store, and they understand the need to keep sales tax and pay it, and then get audited and suddenly find out that, my gosh, I missed every other piece, or the CDTFA is saying, I missed every other piece. I missed 100, you know, I've got to have my sales tax increased by 100%. And I mean, it's just very frustrating, but she did what she did in good faith and tried to make sure that she paid her sales tax, and she doesn't have the records to show otherwise at this point. And I hope that the judges take her oral testimony for what it is, as testimony and evidence that she had the right amount of sales tax every day collected and turned over to the CDTFA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fauché. This is Judge Geary again. This concludes the argument. And before we close, I need to turn to respondent to find out how much time it would need to do the adjustments that we discussed and provide to the appellant and to OTA some kind of a summary showing what respondent contends is the amount of the adjustment that it will allow. How much time do you think, Ms. Jimenez, would you need?
Mr. Geary, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. We'll need at least 30 days.
All right, Judge Geary again. We'll say 30 days. I'm fairly confident you'd be able to do it in that period of time. And I think the plan should be, I'm assuming you will provide some type of explanation or spreadsheet with some another kind of narrative explanation for what the adjustments were based upon what I've seen happen in other audits. And I anticipate that it's possible Mr. Fauché may want to respond to that. Mr. Fauché, I will allow you an opportunity to respond before closing the record also. I've allowed the department, I'm allowing the department 30 days. I will allow you 30 days to respond to whatever the department provides to you and to the Office of Tax Appeal, bearing in mind that your response should, of course, be focused on this additional information and the adjustment that the department is offering. Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Fauché?
It is. Thank you very much.
All right. Let me just check with my panel before closing. Judge Johnson, do you have any questions or concerns you want to express?
Judge Johnson, no. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And Judge Stanley, any questions or concerns?
This is Judge Stanley. No, thank you to all of you and happy holidays.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody for participating, including the little dog we've been hearing from on a regular basis in the background.
That's silly.
I hope everybody has a safe, healthy, and happy holiday season. And we at OTA will look forward to receipt of your additional documentation, respondent, and then, of course, the response from Mr. Fauché. With that, I'm closing this hearing today, though not the record. I'll indicate to you, by the way, just for your information, that once we receive Mr. Fauché's response or some indication from him that he chooses not to make a response to the department's further submission, we will issue a written decision. The three judges will deliberate. The three of us together will issue a written decision within 100 days of that date. I will issue a short order indicating this is the date on which we close the record. 100 days from that date, within that time, you should receive our decision. Again, thank you all very much. And this ends the hearing. And my understanding is that this ends the calendar day for OTA's hearings.